Well, I'm out today in the cold and the relative gloom. You can see by the colours that it's very much autumn now. So the chances of a sunny day to ride are very slim for the next few months. All we can hope for is to stay dry, because I feel like I've gone a bit soft. Despite the fact that we've had the most awful summer, it's been grey, overcast, cold, windy. And quite often on my rides, just by chance, by luck, I've managed to stay dry. So the thought of going out in heavy rain day after day is not particularly appealing. But that's not what I really wanted to talk about today. Any regular viewers will know, though, that it's unusual for me to start a video without talking about the weather. No, what I wanted to talk to you about today is e-bikes. And e-bikes are quite interesting because there's two camps. And those two camps are those that ride e-bikes and those that hate e-bikes. And I'm unusual because I don't fit into either one of those. I think e-bikes are a good thing, but I don't have one myself. And one of the main reasons I haven't got an e-bike is cost and space. And I think e-bikes basically fit into three groups. And again, this is me. I have no experience on this. I can only go on what I've read. The cheap e-bikes are probably best avoided, not from a snobbery point of view, but from a reliability issue. Cheap bikes tend to break, or so I've been told. Batteries catch fire, all that sort of thing. And there is the old saying, you can't get something for nothing. If some manufacturers are selling bikes really cheap, they must have cut corners somewhere. So there are then the more cost-effective e-bikes. Things like the Trek FX, which is really just a city bike. I mean, I don't mean that to sound down on it, I'd quite happily have one. But they have a specific purpose in mind, you know, they don't really anticipate people going on long rides, and they're built accordingly. And then you do get some road bike e-bikes, and they tend to have a hub drive system. Now again, I have no experience on this, I don't know how good a hub drive is. But I do know that popular opinion is that a mid-drive is the best way to power an e-bike. That's where the pedal axle goes through the motor. And unfortunately, it's just the way I am. But if I am going to get an e-bike, I'm going to get a good one. Not necessarily the most expensive, but something that is good quality. And Giant, I'm sitting on a Giant Revolt, and Giant do make an e-bike version of the Revolt, but it's eye-wateringly expensive. So at the moment I'm going to stick with my analogue bikes, but I'm not anti-e-bikes. And I may well end up getting one myself one day. And if you haven't got an e-bike, you might be asking, why have you taken such a keen interest in them? The first reason is, my brother got an e-bike. And we talk a lot about cycling, so I've taken a lot more of an interest. Not to mention the fact that he keeps trying to encourage me to get one. But what was really interesting is this week we went out on an analogue bike. And like me, he's obsessed with data. He records every ride on the Garmin and so on. And he was surprised to discover that he worked harder on the e-bike than he did on the analogue bike. Now there's two caveats to that. Firstly, it wasn't his bike, so he probably wasn't pushing it to the limit. And secondly, it was on relatively flat, even terrain, and he's a mountain biker, so he likes trail riding, and when he's on the trail he's pushing to the limit for the thrill, for the exhilaration, you know. But nevertheless, it is an interesting fact that he worked less hard on the analogue bike, because this is one of the arguments that the anti-e-bikers have, is that you're not actually riding, the bike's doing everything for you. And of course that's absolute nonsense. And the fact is, my brother wouldn't have started cycling if he didn't have an e-bike. My wife has an e-bike, and she wouldn't be able to go the places we go if she didn't have one. And the other reason I've taken an interest is because of the amount of anti-e-bike press going around at the moment. It's a fact of life. Some people don't realise that the press is supported by oil companies, insurance companies, banks, all who have a vested interest in keeping you in cars. And whilst the government talks about environmental concerns, it's lip service. Now, the government makes money because the lion's share of the price of fuel goes straight into the government's back pocket. So having you sitting in traffic wasting fuel is a huge financial benefit to them. And so the right-wing press has gone all out to highlight the supposed dangers of e-bikes. Now, this is a serious danger to pedestrians. But the truth is, on average, one person a year is killed by a cyclist. Or should I say pedestrian, a year. Whereas around 6 people a day are killed. 6 pedestrians a day are killed by car drivers. And yet they're trying to persuade us that the cyclist is a real danger. And the e-bike, well, it's easy to create an emotive narrative for the uninformed. The e-bikes are dangerous because they're heavier than analogue bikes, which is true. But when you take the system weight, I weigh 105 kilos, and my bike weighs around about 10. So that's 115 kilos. If I've got an e-bike and it weighs 20 kilos, with me on it, the system weight is 125 kilos. So it's a very minor increase in percentage terms. And with modern disc brakes, you can stop a bike a lot quicker than you could in the old days. And then there's the speed issue, because e-bikes can go so fast, which again is nonsense. 14 to 15 miles an hour when I'm out riding, and that's an average speed. I'm quite often doing 20, 25 miles an hour on an analogue bike. The e-bike only provides assistance up to 15 miles an hour, well, 50 and a half, it's 25 kilometres an hour. And after that, sure, you can go faster, but you're going faster on your own power, the same as you are on an analogue bike. These are just tried and tested methods that the press have used throughout the years to create emotive headlines by twisting the truth. And unfortunately, people fall for it all the time. And then, worse than that, the cycling press, or cycling media in general, become apologetic instead of defensive. And you start saying things like, oh yeah, as cyclists we need to be more aware of pedestrians and more considerate to other road users, and we mustn't go too fast in busy areas, and you know, things like this. But they're not saying anything to defend the cyclists and the e-bike. They're not doing anything to point out how the truth is being twisted, and the cyclists themselves. Cyclists have always been their own worst enemy. They're always picking on other groups of cyclists to have a go at, instead of all sticking together. We all do the same thing in one way or another. We all turn pedals for movement, fitness and enjoyment. And the more the anti-cycling feeling gets a grip, the more difficult it will be for all of us, not just e-bikes, but get onto a Facebook group and see how many people are having a go at each other, even on cycling groups, telling people that ride e-bikes that they're not proper cyclists, or they're riding mopeds or stupid things like that. How the people with old school maps and stopwatches criticise people. Continually critical of the people who have embraced whatever technology comes about. And as I said, it'll end up with all of us becoming more restricted in the way we ride. So if you want an e-bike, go and get one. And if you know somebody who's got an e-bike, encourage them, defend them, because we all need to stick together.